Hello and welcome to Post to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey. My name's Neil and today we're here to talk about the NHL trade rumors. But before we get into that, I just want to make a note that I am wearing a new jersey that I just got recently, an Edmonton Oilers Taylor Hall jersey. I got this at Lids, so if you're Canadian and you're into collecting merchandise like hats or jerseys or whatever, keep an eye out on lids.ca because there's often great hat and more importantly jersey deals there. They have a clearance section. So if you go to clearance, or if you go to jerseys and then clearance and then change it to NHL only, sort by lowest to highest, you can find some pretty great deals in there. This jersey here was, don't know if you can see this or not, but the original price on this was $240, which I would never pay $240 for a jersey. Always, if you're going to buy a jersey, always make sure you find a deal. But this was on clearance for $48. I don't know if you can see that, but $48. And then they had an additional clearance sale on top of that, so it brought it down a little bit, and then I'm a Lids member, so that brought it down even more. So I ended up paying $34 after tax for this jersey, and this is a beautiful jersey. So, I mean, $34 for an official Reebok jersey that's awesome. So if you're diligent enough, you can find the deals. So now on to the discussion about some trades that have happened recently over the past couple days, and also some rumors. So first up, we have Patrick Eaves from Dallas. He was traded to Anaheim for a second-round conditional draft choice. So this is an interesting deal, and I think it does kind of work both ways for both teams here because Anaheim gets to really solidify another top six forward. Hopefully, I mean, if it works out, then Anaheim will have another top six winger, which they desperately need. And then Dallas gets back a pick. It's a second-round pick. It could potentially turn into a first-round pick if Anaheim makes the conference finals, I believe. I think it's the conference finals, but if they make it that far and Dallas gets a first-round pick, that could be a really great deal for Dallas. And any other year, you would probably think that the Anaheim Ducks would be crazy to make that trade or to make that deal. But a lot of people have said that this draft year is pretty weak, so who knows really? Dallas could come out on top of this deal, or they could really pick someone who flops. But either way, I think it works out for both teams because Eaves was a UFA at the end of this year, so Dallas was going to have to make a decision there. And then Anaheim really gets a top six forward, which will help them vastly moving into the playoffs. And next up, Detroit has traded Yurko to the Hawks for a third rounder. Sorry, I have a few notes here on my laptop, so I'm going to be referencing them. Detroit frees up $900K. So that's great, but it doesn't really help them this year. It helps them next year. I think he was an RFA, so they were gonna have to make a decision there. And Chicago gets a player that hasn't really performed this year. I don't think he has any points with Detroit this year. Definitely could be wrong. If I am, let me know. But maybe new scenery for him will spark him. And I think if anyone gets traded to Chicago, they have to be like, wow, okay, I'm going to a team that's recently won 3 Stanley Cups and has the ability to probably win a few more in the next couple of years. I think he's probably pretty happy about that. So moving on to the rumors, and first up we have Shattenkirk. So he's been kind of rumored to be in connection with the Flyers, Pittsburgh, Toronto, Montreal. So there was apparently a deal to send Shattenkirk to Tampa Bay about 6 weeks ago, but he completely declined the offer. And we're not really sure why yet, but the rumor is that Tyler Johnson could have been a piece moving back as well as Ben Bishop. So I'm not really sure what else St. Louis would have sent back to Tampa, but it looked to be a pretty big deal. So, it's interesting that some of these big deals don't go down and stuff. You always find out later what could have happened and stuff. So I'm interested to see what comes of this and what Shattenkirk's reasoning was. But I think he was offered a 7-year, it was a deal signing kind of thing at the same time. I think he was offered 7 years, which he wanted. So I'm not really sure what happened there. And recently, Pittsburgh has been in the runnings for Shattenkirk. Just in the last couple of days, there's been lots of rumors there. So I'm not really sure what the deal would be, but I assume that Fleury would leave Pittsburgh, go to St. Louis, and St. Louis would send Shattenkirk to Pittsburgh. And that, if you look at both teams here, so Fleury is probably going to be exposed at the end of the year anyway, so Pittsburgh knows he's going to be gone, so why not get rid of him, right? So Fleury goes to St. Louis, Shattenkirk comes back, Pittsburgh actually frees up over $1 million in cap space just to make that deal. So they solidify another defenseman that will help them in the playoffs vastly. And that, I mean, Shattenkirk on already powerful Pittsburgh team is very scary. So I think that's a pretty good deal for Pittsburgh. And then St. Louis gets back Fleury, which I don't want to say is a starter because, I really hope Allen as much success as possible. I hope he continues to be the starter. But, I mean, if Allen struggles and Fleury has to move from backup to starter, I mean, Fleury has the capability to do that. And if we move back to Pittsburgh, they free up $1 million in cap space, which is great. But I think that deal would mainly be a rental situation because Shattenkirk wants a lot of money. I don't think Pittsburgh can fit it into the cap situation next year. So I think that would be a rental deal. And then at the end of this year, we'd probably see Shattenkirk sign with another team. And moving on to Bishop. So there's been a few rumblings around Bishop all year, really. So the Flyers, St. Louis, Winnipeg all said to be interested. And according to many sources, there was a blockbuster deal that almost happened, or not almost happened, but it was in discussion between the Flyers and Tampa Bay. So the two names that were thrown out there were Mason and Bishop, but it was going to be a multiplayer deal, so multiple players from each team moving back and forth. But recently, the Flyers have said, or the Flyers GM Hextall has said, we won't be buyers at this deadline. We want to build from within. So I think that was said yesterday. So, I wouldn't expect this deal to go down, and the Flyers could be pretty quiet at the trade deadline, although they still might make a few moves. And next we have Evander Kane, and he's been linked to Nashville, Montreal, Los Angeles, and Florida. So his cap hit is $5.25 million. So it could be a risky trade for a few teams if they want to take him on. And I really do think the best fit for Kane is to go to Nashville. I think his style of play really fits in with the style of coaching and the game plan that Laviolette has there. And I think that could be a long-term fit for Nashville. So look for Nashville to really make a play for Evander Kane. And next up we have Vanek, and this is an interesting one because he's been linked to Chicago, Florida, and Montreal. And I guess Florida is very interested in as well as Chicago. But, Montreal is a funny one here because Vanek played for Montreal and a couple years ago in their playoff run in 2014, I think. And, he did okay, but he didn't really live up to the expectations, and as many don't Montreal, the crazy media up there and stuff and the fans. But, Montreal has a new coach this year, or not this year, but recently. So Montreal has a new coach, and Vanek was reported to have had conflict with Terriens. So with a new coach in Montreal, would Vanek thrive under Julien? Who knows? It's possible. But I don't see Vanek going back to Montreal. I still see Vanek going to Chicago. Chicago still needs a few more pieces to really make another push for the Cup. And the last name I have on my list for today is Duclair. And Ottawa, the Flyers, and the Penguins all said to be interested. So even though the Flyers won't be huge buyers at the deadline, I do see a minor trade for Duclair potentially taking place. And much like Kane fitting in Nashville, I do see Duclair fitting in Flyers pretty well. His style of game really molds to the Flyers, and I think the experience on the blue line would help grow Duclair as well. Like those other experienced guys on the blue line in Philadelphia would help grow Duclair's game, and I think that's probably a long-term option for Philadelphia. And I just have a few other just very quick rumors here that I've read recently and stuff, so I'll go through those. Los Angeles is said to be shopping Gaborik, so that's very interesting. The Rangers and Kings are rumored to be working on a trade, so look out for that in the next couple days. Sharks are in the market for a backup goalie. Boston's still pushing hard for Landeskog. Duchesne's still rumored to be traded, but there hasn't been much news in that in the past couple days. Thankfully, that was beating a dead horse for a while. It was just every 30 minutes TSN or Sportsnet was releasing an article on Duchesne, but there hasn't been much recently. I don't know if that's good news or bad news. Expect Detroit to keep selling. They get rid of one player already, and unfortunately, they're not going to make the playoffs, and that wonderful playoff streak will come to an end. So expect them to get rid of a few more players, probably for picks. Del Zotto is rumored to be shopped as well, and Montreal is still working hard to move Pattern and Desharnais. Desharnais has a $3.25 million cap hit, I think. So, Montreal's really trying to move him so they can make room for another deal. So, that's going to be pretty interesting. I assume they will definitely get rid of him. I just don't know what they're going to get in return. His trade value is pretty low. So, it's going to be an interesting next few days. And I guess the last thing I need to bring up here is that I don't know if this is going to happen for sure. I still need to work on a few technical details, but I've taken the day off work on Wednesday, specifically for the trade deadline, March 1st, and I'm going to try and live stream that morning. So I'm not going to live stream the whole day, but just for a couple hours in the morning. I think Justin's going to come over too. He took the day off work as well. It's funny, Canadians taking a day off work for the trade deadline. It's, a comical thing, but he's going to come over hopefully in the morning, and we're going to live stream maybe for 2 hours. I'm not 100% sure yet, but we're going to go through all the teams' cap situation and trade potentials and stuff like that. So it should be pretty interesting. So, if you're around Wednesday morning coming up on March 1st and you want to watch a live stream in the morning, tune into us and we'll hopefully keep you entertained. But we won't be live streaming for the full day. Probably stop around 11 a.m., I think. And then at that time, I'll do as many, and I'll be watching the live feed of TSN or Sportsnet and those professional casters talk about all the trades and breaking all the news. And probably later that day, I'll be making quite a few videos, and have the day off. So later in the day, hopefully be making a lot of videos on the trades that went down and stuff. So look out for those in the future. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you subscribe if you're not. So hit the subscribe button below. We're releasing videos quite frequently here. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them below. Otherwise, check my social media links down in the description below. And just a final note, who do you think is going to get traded? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video. Adios.